Hello there. Welcome back to the Harley Carnes podcast. Harley on the headlines. I appreciate you for being there. Otherwise, I might as well be talking in a closet to the clothes hangers and such. Come to think of it, you know, I once wrote most of a novel sitting in the clothes closet. We're in a very small apartment back in the day, long time ago, and I had a little typing desk, so I sort of nosed it into the closet in the evening, and then I sat there looking at the clothes, typing away. Did that for a number of weeks. I was actually working with no less than Lester Hemingway at that time, working on a book. Anyway, let's get to cases now. Sad stuff, really. Rob Reiner is dead. He and his wife were found stabbed to death in their home in Los Angeles. Rob Reiner? Michelle, his wife, both stabbed? Damn. Naturally, the family is asking for some privacy during this heartbreak. RHD, Robbery Homicide Division of the LAPD, has the case, and they are not talking about it much, and naturally, everyone wants to know why and who and all of it. We know this much. They have a mansion in Brentwood, one of the nicest, safest of neighborhoods. Rob and Michelle were married since 1989. They were discovered a stabbed and bloody mess Sunday afternoon. Cops called a little after 3:30 in the afternoon there, 6:30 in the east. People start casting about for motive, and these days people think almost first about politics. I think you can probably forget about that. He was highly engaged as a political activist on the left, but Rob Reiner, whether you agreed with his on-his-sleeve politics or not, was one of the good guys in this country, going all the way back to his role as Mike Stivic, Meathead, Archie Bunker's nickname for him, in All in the Family. He brought smiles, lots of them. He made movies that brought smiles, not just comedies. Here are a few of his greatest movies as actor, producer, so forth. When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, This Is Spinal Tap, A Few Good Men, First Wives Club, Primary Colors, The Wolf of Wall Street, 2 Emmy Awards, 5 Golden Globe nominations, an Oscar nomination for A Few Good Men. Rob was 78. Whoever did this is in the wind, so to speak. Police haven't yet begun to talk about suspects or someone of interest. The coroner still has work to do. Bottom line, this just sucks. I mean, he was good people. The only investigative clue so far comes from the Associated Press, which says a family member is being questioned in the killings. Now, in fact, investigators do tend to look at the highly personal and intense emotional component that a stabbing tends to indicate, because unlike a shooting, which can be accomplished from some kind of distance, stabbing someone to death requires or allows the killer to look into the eyes of the victim, to hear their anguish and feel their terror. Stabbings are either spur-of-the-moment explosions of mindless rage, or they are very, very personal. Can't jump to conclusions yet. Too many pins in the air for the jugglers to be able to do that. Ant-iSemitism. It is alive and malignantly well in the world these days. And for Christians like me, who were raised to believe that Jews are God's chosen people, even if that title did come because the Israelite tribes were the first, thanks to Abraham, to choose God as the one omnipotent force in the universe, support for Israel and for Jews, their rights and their safety, is simply a part of life at our house. We didn't spend any time thinking about it, really. It was just part of the fabric, like the wallpaper in the meager bungalow of my childhood. What happened at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, comes as a surprise to many people. Not the anti-Semitism part. That's been percolating with more and more vigor in Australia and seemingly everywhere else for some time. It's a surprise because getting your hands on a gun in the land down under is very difficult if you're a law abider. It's just one more demonstration that if you are a criminal and you want a gun, no matter where you are, you can find one on the black market. Besides, criminals don't want a gun legally purchased and registered to them anyway. Duh. This isn't about guns, though. Politicians, paramecia, Politicians may try to make it about guns, as though a gun jumped up off the counter, leaped out of a cabinet, snagged some bad guys on the way out the door, and pointed itself at innocent people. There are politicians who will say we need even more anti-gun laws, as if a law that said thou shalt not ever stopped a determined breaker of law. Australia has some of the toughest anti-gun laws in the world. That's why there are black markets, so that criminals can sell the things that are illegal and make big profits. And they do. It is important to keep our eyes as human beings on the actual subject matter, the bouncing ball of hatred. It is about killing one of the most law-abiding populations on the planet. You can argue all you want about whether Israel is a colonial power colonizing land that it does not own, but it is not Jews that invaded Palestine and run amok, killing men, women, and children in a wild, mostly indiscriminate spray of bullets. It is not Jews who behead Palestinians, rape women, and kidnap children while shouting praises to their God. It is radical Islam that does that. Terrorists do that. And yet, here in America, on social media, such vermin are praised and supported. It defies understanding, except for the mindless emotion of hatred. Hatred like that has to be taught. It's not natural. The natural tendency of a child is to play. It is innocence and a daily discovery of what is beautiful in their ever-expanding world. Children do not naturally hate each other or even others in distant places. They have to be taught to do that. So what's to be done? In the specific cases, perpetrators must be caught, jailed, and imprisoned, or if the law requires, executed. In the broader sense, society, which is based on peaceable living, must decide that anything less than that just won't do. Hatred taught to the young is also a criminal behavior, teaching that it is okay to kill, to harass, to attack Jews or Christians is just as wrong as it was ever wrong for the English to believe that killing an Irishman was no worse than killing a dog. That was a long time ago. But England changed all that. And now there is anti-Semitism and anti-Christian and anti-this or that all over the world. And in one country after another, governments have fallen prey to the poisonous propaganda that politics based on that hatred is a legitimate point of discussion. It is not. It's not. Peace-loving people should, and they must, stand up. And heck, if you're an atheist, you should stand taller than most others, because the idea that under cover of any religious pattern of thought, that violence against others may be condoned should be especially repugnant to you at a visceral and intellectual level, because you, as an atheist, don't believe in any other person's religion. As usual, from the world's so-called leaders, we are hearing the usual lip service to peace and brotherhood. It is past time for lovers of peace to not just take a stand, but to go to work to put an end to the garbage of hatred once and for all. It's not a freedom to be able to teach this crap. It's just not. There's an old saying, of course, that you have freedom of speech. You can say anything you want. And by and large, that's true, unless you shout fire in a crowded theater, right? Well, this is screaming fire in crowded theaters. A word about the police response in Sydney, by the way, to the wanton shootings. The response was pretty embarrassing, slow, poorly focused, and haphazard in the initial moments at best. The reasons are understandable. Australia has long been one of the most peaceful places with low crime rates, especially gun crimes. On the other hand, Israel gave their counterparts in Australia good and solid intel that trouble was afoot and that precautions should be taken. The lack of preparation and the response reminded me of one of those school attacks that happened in South Texas. And members of the sheriff's department, you'll probably remember this, waited, undertrained and unsure just what to do outside the building with the sound of gunfire being heard from inside the school. For long minutes, they failed to charge into that school, and it cost a lot. What happened afterward was a lot of training, a lot of learning from experts who had been through it before, what to do, how to deploy, how to enter quickly, safely, effectively. Sydney police will predictably go through some additional training after this. They'll get faster, more effective. They'll get better. They are undoubtedly highly professional law enforcers, but every city in the world faces a world that has changed. Like bringing up the temperature of water in the cookpot, we lobsters are in new and uncomfortable places. It is unfortunate that the Aussie Prime Minister's first comments on his government's response really is focused on gun laws instead of getting serious about the threat represented in his country by radical Islam. Not Islam itself, but radical Islamism. And it is a dangerous ism that believes that if you're a non-believer, also known as an infidel, you can and should be either killed or forced to convert. No wonder visiting aliens don't show themselves, except mostly from a distance and moving real fast, Speaking of space, briefly, SpaceX sent another rocket up. It deposited another 27 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. That makes 550 launches. No kidding. 550. 451 of those times, the booster rockets landed back on the surface, typically on a ship in the ocean. They're reusable. And on this particular launch, it was the 9th time that booster was sent up. The 9th time. Japan has decided to build its way out of its shipbuilding slump. Tokyo is investing nearly $6.5 billion, a trillion yen, to fund a shipbuilding revitalization roadmap. That's what they're calling it. The idea, similar to the U.S. and some other nations, and most notably China, is an all-Japan framework that consolidates shipping and shipbuilding and redefines them as strategic industries for the nation. They are building a new submarine right now. It's been 50 years since the heyday of Japanese shipbuilding. In the early 1970s, Japan did about half of the world's shipbuilding. Now they're in single digits, where they've been for a long time. It's time to get after it. Free nations of the world are going to need all the high-quality ships, planes, and other equipment for the strivings sure to come. Part of the negotiations toward ending the war in Ukraine, President Zelensky is saying uncle. He's saying his country will apparently have to give up its dream of joining NATO, which is what we mentioned last week. Talk of Ukraine being invited to become part of the European Union would be a half measure aimed at shoring up Ukraine's economic and security situations. Still don't know what Russia thinks about all this. There's an old and wise adage that says, don't give someone a hand out, give them a hand up. Don't give them food, give them seeds and teach them how to grow it. For centuries, the mighty Nile River has been the bane and the savior of countless people. The Nile is the lifeblood, but it also floods its banks and wipes things out. In South Sudan, there is a wonderful story. Instead of tens of thousands of people having to walk for miles, virtually every day, to bring home filthy water from borehole water wells alongside the Nile to the small city of Bor in Sudan, good people from the Netherlands and South Korea decided to bring the water to the people. They installed a 33 miles long network of pipelines which now brings water to 28 communities, at least 704 homes, 7 schools, and a hospital. 98,000 people now have clean water. That's great, huh? Well, here's the best part. Someone has to run the water system. Now, sure, the volunteers from Holland and South Korea could continue doing that, but why? Why not educate some of the South Sudanese? Develop plumbers and pump mechanics and electricians and even some laboratory technicians to run the water system and make sure they continue to produce good, clean water. That is what they're doing. That's huge. They're also training commercial managers and accountants to handle the billing and regular reports. Costs about 80 cents per cubic yard of water at the tap. And what it means is this: children can attend school rather than spend whole days walking marathons to carry buckets of water. And farmers can irrigate to grow the food year-round. That is good stuff. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. You know, hitting like, follow, subscribe, all can help, helping us to build an audience. Sending someone you know a text or an email and giving this effort a mention is, well, it's even better because it's the personal touch, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that, but I can try. I really, 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 really thank you from the very, 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 very lucky bottom of my pea-picking heart. How's that? I'm Harley Carnes. Let's do this again tomorrow.